Now, may I request Ms. Ruchika Drall, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, for her presentation.
A very good afternoon to everyone, and my sincere thanks to the organizers for having me here during this important discussion of sustainable mobility. And I feel that the context of whole discussion has been very accurately set by Wadhwa sir by highlighting, what has really led to this issue of, unsustainable mobility and why we are talking about it today. So, as sir has very rightly pointed out, we have had, changes in our lifestyles, and we have reached a point where our lifestyles have become unsustainable. So definitely there is something needs to be done about it. However, it is not possible to go back to the times we were in. So there has to be something going forward. So we going into the future, we cannot be doing what we did in the past and also not what we are doing today. That is the reason we have entrepreneurs and innovators like GrowCulp and rest of the ecosystem working towards sustainable mobility. In fact, increasing sustainability in all sectors of the economy, all aspects of our lives. So with this, I would want to highlight the government's perspective on mobility, what government is doing. All of us are, very well aware that India is proudly holding G20's presidency, and it is trying to push its, preferred agendas through different working groups in the G20. Therefore, the green mobility is one of the key elements that is being discussed under various working group, including the environment and climate sustainability working group that Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is holding. So since the time the issue of climate change was realized, India has always been, a front runner, and India has never shied away from making the contribution wherever we can. And we have never, shied away from taking ambitious commitments. However, all that is, in consideration with our national objectives and our development aspirations, the development aspirations of the people. So whatever commitments, whatever targets have been taken by the country at the international and the national level are in line with the development aspirations of the country. And we have always taken sustainable macroeconomic development as a particular focus, along with other issues that need to be addressed, including poverty, meeting the basic needs of the citizens, and providing access to energy to each of the citizens of the country. And when we talk about the transportation specifically, transportation sector contributes a major chunk of greenhouse gas emissions, as already highlighted by the previous speaker. At the same time, it holds enormous potential for the required change. It has seen enormous growth during past couple of decades, and today it contributes to about 10% of our national GDP. And recently, in 2018, during the Global Mobility Summit, the Honorable Prime Minister of India had envisioned India's mobility based on 7 Cs. And these Cs stand for common, connected, convenient, congestion free, charged, clean, and cutting edge mobility. All these aspirations are in line with our international commitments and national development requirements. Now, when we have already talked about the net zero emission targets that individual countries have taken for themselves, India has taken it for 2070, and in order to be able to achieve that net zero emission by 2070, India has come up with a long term low emission development strategy. We call that document as LT-LEDs in short. And this document was submitted to UNFCCC in November 2022 last year during the COP27 in Egypt. And this basic framework for the low emission development strategy of the country has 7 key transitions that are required across different sectors. And one of this transition is to move towards an integrated, efficient, inclusive, low carbon transport system. And that is something I would want to focus on, since the session we are in is focusing on the mobility in different forms. Now, adding to what has already been highlighted in LT LEDs, it basically provides a overarching framework on how we see the transportation system to evolve in next couple of years, or rather a decade. It focuses on improved fuel efficiency, phasing towards cleaner fuels, modal shift towards public and less polluting modes of transportation, electrification across multiple modes of transportation, the demand side management, and the traffic management, along with intelligent transport system. These are the guiding lights or guidances for the innovators across the country on where the government sees the transport system to be heading to. And in line with the strategy, the union government's budget this year, that is 2023 to 24, has very rightly embedded sustainability aspirations into its key policies and schemes. Greening the economy is one of the seven top priorities that the government has taken for itself, which are called the Saptarishi. And there have been special budgetary allocations for development of the EV sector, which I'll be talking about going forward. Talking about the Ministry of Civil Aviation's initiatives that they have taken to promote sustainable development in the aviation sector, and also reducing carbon emissions from the airports. The ministry is very closely focusing on standardizing carbon accounting and reporting framework of Indian airports, and that will be applicable to the brownfield as well as the greenfield airports that are coming up across the country. Then something has already been mentioned on Corsia, which is the carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for aviation sector. This is an international framework to reduce emissions from the aviation sector, and it is being implemented in 3 different phases. And since India is a developing country, the offsetting requirements under Corsia will be applicable to the Indian carriers only after 2027. However, the Indian carriers are already preparing for that regulation, and there has been serious dialogues on sustainable aviation fuel and other ways to reduce emissions from the aviation sector. Then coming to the road transport or the surface transport, there has been a continued focus on the very popular FAME scheme, that is faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles in India. The second phase of the scheme was approved in April 2019, and it is going to be active for next 5 years with the special budgetary allocations. And there are measures to enhance the demand for the electric vehicles by providing demand incentives. At the same time, production linked incentives are being provided to the manufacturers of advanced chemistry cells, which are used in the electric vehicles. And the cost of the batteries and the environment friendly disposal of the batteries is directly proportional to the cost of the electric vehicles. So the different multi-pronged approach is being taken to make electric vehicles cost competitive in the market and enhance their adoption in different areas. And there has been a reduction in GST on the automobile and auto components. Earlier it was 15%, now it has been reduced to 5%. Again, the GST has been reduced on chargers and charging stations also to 5%. Parallelly, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has issued a notification to the state governments to waive the road tax for the EV vehicles. So, all this is being done to enhance or boost the demand of the electric vehicles amongst the consumers like us. And the approach towards the hydrogen fuel and green hydrogen has already been discussed by my co-panelist in the previous presentation. Additionally, there is a policy for voluntary vehicle fleet modernization program, or the vehicle scrapping policy, where the incentives are being provided to phase out the unfit and polluting vehicles irrespective of their age. So these are the kind of measures being taken to enhance the sustainability in the surface transport. And parallelly, there is a national logistic policy which is very much linked with the transportation cost and the sustainability of the transportation sector. And India envisages to reduce the logistic cost in the country to global benchmarks by 2030. So these are some of the ambitious targets or goals that have been set for the by the government of India in the mobility sector. Similarly, in the shipping sector or the water transport sector, there is a green tug transition program to enhance the effectiveness or the efficiency, environmental efficiency of the tugs being used in Indian waters. And in order to work specifically on the subject, the India's first national center of excellence in green port and shipping was inaugurated in Gurugram in March this year. And the objective of this innovation center or the center of excellence is to make India the global hub for building green ships by 2030. And it will not only meet the requirements of the sustainable transportation system. However, it will also help us meet the sustainable development goal 14, which asks for sustainable management and protection of marine and coastal ecosystems, protecting them from the pollution, preserving the coastal and marine habitats, and sustainable use of ocean based resources. And the overarching policy for the shipping sector or the maritime sector is the Maritime Vision Document 2030, which was released by our Honorable Prime Minister as a 10-year blueprint for this sector to be able to become sustainable over the period and to transition towards a sustainable, climate resilient maritime sector and a vibrant blue economy that can support the lives as well as livelihoods of the people who are dependent on the marine environment. And it is important to mention here that India has been selected as one of the first countries under IMO Green Voyage 2050 project to conduct pilot projects related to green shipping. So looking at the aspirations or the ambitious targets that the country has set for itself, it has been selected as the first country for green shipping pilot project. So with all this, I just want to highlight that efforts and initiatives, policies, programs are being developed by the government of India across different sectors of the economy, including all the modes of transportation. However, all these policy programs will be meaningless without active and meaningful participation from the rest of the stakeholders in this ecosystem. So, we urge all the individual players in the sector, whether it is private sector working on building the infrastructure, on manufacturing the vehicles, or the innovators or the consumers, we require a concerted effort from all the stakeholders of this sector to be able to receive and see some meaningful outputs. So I'll stop here by just concluding that India has been taking very ambitious actions across different sectors of the economy, and in order to be able to achieve those ambitions in a positive and a rightful manner, the involvement of all the stakeholders is the key. Cooperation is the key, and I think this is what we intend to do with these kind of summits, that we are trying to bring together all the stakeholders to be to build their capacity on different subjects, and at the same time to inform them about the expectations of each other to build this sustainable ecosystem. Thank you very much for your patient hearing, and we look forward to more. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your views.